Hello, welcome to Donaram Monologue Podcast. I am your host, as normal, for these monologue podcasts, just Beau. Again, we want to thank and encourage you to check out our sponsor, Ashley Luann K, on Instagram. It is just a wonderful resource of nursing, lifestyle, education, occupation. Check her out. The link is in the description of this video as normal. Again, that is Ashley Luann K. You can find that just by searching her on Instagram as well. So, it's no secret on the show, I love Kingdom Hearts, and it's my favorite video game series of all time. I think it's the most imaginative, brilliant, and most importantly, funnest video game series ever created. And I feel like I mentioned it a lot because none of the other guys at Donaram like Kingdom Hearts. They've never played it. They don't know what's going on. They're probably like many of us, myself included, who saw Mickey Mouse and Sephiroth in the same commercial in high school and was like, I promise you that all melds together well. I promise you it does. And honestly, I think we could I'm going to talk Don into doing a podcast series with me we're going to go through Kingdom Hearts entirely. Each game gets at least one podcast each. The bigger games like Kingdom Hearts 2 will probably get more than one. I'm going to convince him to do it with us because I honestly, the ones I did earlier in our history that was when we weren't as good. And I was kind of jumping all over the place because we weren't as organized. I want to do those right. I want to give Kingdom Hearts its own podcast series done by Donaram. And honestly, I think people would love it because the people that love Kingdom Hearts like Kiss fans. I also am a card-carrying member of the Kiss Army. But Kingdom Hearts fans are like Kiss fans. We really love it. We really, really love this thing. So I'm excited to do that. But I've also spoken to you guys before that my wife and I are just huge Disney nerds. It's one of the things we bonded with each other on very early in our relationship. We both love Disney. We finally got to take a vacation to Walt Disney World last year. Most magical time we've ever had. We're going back again this year. We planned our trip in December, so far all those reservations are still kosher with all the things going on. But I love Disney. I always have. And I think most kids that were kids in the 90s loved Disney because it was something that was just universally agreed upon by parents, kids like this, and they just, when they had to buy us something, it was that. They'd throw a Disney VHS at us. And thankfully, we had like Aladdin and The Lion King. We had a lot of really cool stuff. But today, I want to talk about, so bearing those two things in mind, how much I love Kingdom Hearts and how much I love Disney, period, I want to talk to you guys about great Disney video games that weren't Kingdom Hearts. These didn't have to come out before Kingdom Hearts. They could have been out after, but there are some legendary video games in Disney Interactive, the old Disney Interactive Studios history, almost all based on previously established Disney properties. I'm going to go all the way back to the NES for the first one. This is a legendary game. People love it to this day, and the music is such a huge part of why they do. DuckTales. It's going to be extremely difficult for you to find people in my generation that didn't love DuckTales. It was action-adventure. There was always something new going on every episode you tuned in. There was just something about Adam, did you watch DuckTales as a kid? Oh, woo! To this day, if my wife walks in while I'm taking a shower, I don't sing in the shower. But if she does walk in while I'm taking a shower, I will if I hear the door open, I'll just go lasers, race cars, airplanes. It's just it's an iconic television show of my generation. And it had a great video game, a legitimately good platforming video game. And there were several elements that made this game good, that you knew it was going to be good when you picked up the box. Because even as a child, you understood that video games based on other media sucked out loud when we were kids. They were awful. There was just nothing redeeming about them. It was just pure product placement. They just put these barely recognizable sprites from whatever established series it was onto this screen in a game that was difficult, not because it was made to be a challenge, but because it just had negligent programming. But it was different. DuckTales, you could tell, was different automatically because when you picked it up and it was Disney. And Disney, not always, but tends to carefully involve themselves in any product that is made with their intellectual property. Not always. There's plenty of, I'm sure everyone's already getting ready to light up the comments about the original VHS cover of The Little Mermaid. I get it. They're not omniscient. Adam will explain later. This is a family show, but they're not omniscient. But typically, they press a pretty hard thumb on whatever is going to be using their IPs. And another thing that told you this is going to be a great game when we were kids is Capcom. This game was made by Capcom, DuckTales for the NES. And any kid when we were kids knows that meant Mega Man. And so we see that just great 8-bit platforming action taking place in DuckTales. And much like Mega Man, you have a stage select. There's no clear path through this game. You get to go to different stages, and if you go to the moon, you will be blessed with the greatest 8-bit music track of all time. Go to YouTube and look up the original 8-bit version of the moon from DuckTales. You will not be disappointed. In DuckTales, it was just a really fun platforming adventure, and it followed the format of the show well. You're globe-trotting looking for Scrooge's treasure. Of course, Scrooge has plenty of treasure, but he always wanted more, and that was kind of the point of the show. And I can't remember the game story because, let's face it, a lot of these 8-bit platformers, we weren't playing for the story. But I don't clearly remember it, but I know on the show, typically Scrooge would get his fortune back, and then it would go to some charity or something, whether he wanted it to or not. But he typically didn't. He just because he's a rich Disney character doesn't mean he's not still a rich guy. And what do we say on Donaram? Everyone with a large amount of personal wealth is evil. That's not true, but most of them, but not all of them. Art Carnegie seemed like he was probably a pretty nice guy. Anyway, so that was DuckTales. Again, DuckTales is amazing, chiefly because of its gameplay. So there's nothing I could really tell you about that. You have to pogo around on his cane and knock people out. It was great. And the level design is just magnifico. It's just an incredible example of great 8-bit platforming. And so we'll move on from there into the next generation of video game, into the fifth gen of video. No, not fifth. Fourth. The fifth. The Super Nintendo and such. So whatever. We're going on to another generation of video games. I can't remember now. Wait, PlayStation 2 was sixth, so fifth would have been 64 and Sony. So yeah, fourth. So we're going into that, and with the SNES and the Sega Genesis, and two iconic games that just saw a re-release on the Switch, and I believe the other major platforms. By the way, DuckTales is actually you can actually get that as part of the Disney Afternoon Collection. The collection of digital games that was for the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and I believe the Switch. It just collects 4 games. I believe it's because the only one I play is DuckTales. I can't remember. I think Tailspin's in there, which had a decent game. DuckTales 2, which was decent, and Darkwing Duck, which I think it's Darkwing Duck. I don't remember Darkwing Duck being decent. I think it was just kind of hard. But speaking of hard, Aladdin and the Lion King for the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. There's not much difference between I think the definitive version of Aladdin was for the Genesis, but I believe it had a port to SNES. And I believe it was just the opposite for the Lion King. I believe the Lion King was more famous for its SNES one. But again, I don't remember. I do remember these were great games, though. These were great platformers. And the challenge was unreal. It was an incredible challenge. There was a joke forever on these old guy gaming websites about you kids think Dark Souls is tough. Back in my day, we had the Lion King. And excuse me, I've been talking a lot. Adam just told me earlier that people love my show because I don't take a lot of pauses. So I can't stand. I hate success. I'm going to do everything I can to sabotage myself. But the Lion King and Aladdin, the challenge was so incredibly real, but you hear this a lot when people talk about old Castlevania games. Yes, there's challenge, and yes, there's frustrating challenge, but it's a rewarding one. It doesn't feel cheap when you die. It might at the moment you die because you're like, gosh, that's so cheap. Why do they make it that way? But you can find a way around it, and you can get better at the game. It's not like negligible difficulty where the game's just super difficult because no one actually took time to play test it before they just slapped the stupid X-Men game for Nintendo. But Aladdin and the Lion King, it just follows the story of the movies, and the graphics are just beautiful 16-bit graphics. It looked like a side-scrolling version of the movie. Very well done, meticulously well done. You get collectibles and stuff like that, just like any good platformer of the day. Intense combat. Aladdin even had a level where you were escaping the Cave of Wonders, and you're on carpet in sort of a side-scrolling, spaceship shooter, kind of like a Gradius or something like that. Excellent game. Very tight gameplay, I guess I would say. So again, those are games that were great due to the gameplay. And I want to talk to you about a game now. It came out of the Wii, and this game has great gameplay, a fantastic story, a wonderfully imaginative presentation, and that's Epic Mickey. So this game came out in 2010, 2009, 2010 for the Wii. And it's a Wii exclusive to this day because so much of its gameplay relied on the nunchuck controller. The nunchuck controller was your paintbrush, which I'll explain here in a minute. The Walt Disney Company had just gotten rights to a character that Walt and Ub Iwerks made before they ever made Mickey, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Many people don't know this, but Walt Disney did not just start making cartoons working for himself, and he didn't invent the cartoon either. But I think a study of his history will reveal that him and Ub Iwerks absolutely revolutionized animation. And again, this isn't a podcast about Walt Disney. I get it. He's got a lot of criticism on him as a person or whatever, but you have to admit, Walt Disney Animation Studio revolutionized animation. If you don't believe me, go watch Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and compare it to anything else released in 1937. I'm a big fan. I'm sorry. So the Walt Disney Company, when Walt made Mickey, it was after he had lost his contract with Universal. Universal was originally producing these Oswald the Lucky Rabbit cartoons, and it turned out Universal owned Oswald. That's why Mickey was invented. They couldn't use Oswald anymore, so they made Mickey Mouse. So that's a little bit of history for you. Anyway, the Walt Disney Company got the rights to Oswald back, which is neat because Oswald's actually one of my son's favorite little iconographic things. So he was all about there's a little bit of Oswald merch at Walt Disney World now that we got him a couple pins or something. But so they got the rights to Oswald back, and one of the first things they did when they got the IP to this character again was they made a video game about the character before Mickey being jealous of Mickey. That's incredible, guys. That's just such a good idea. And it was part of Walt Disney's campaign the Walt Disney Company's campaign to remake Mickey. Since the 50s, Mickey went from a average cartoon character that went on all sorts of mischievous adventures into sort of more of a moral icon. And so through the years, the point of Mickey Mouse cartoons has been more to teach kids how to be nice to each other and stuff like that, which is fine. That's what we love about Mickey Mouse. But Walt Disney, back in 2010, the Walt Disney Company wanted to make Mickey back into that adventurous, sort of mischievous character. So they thought a good way to do that is a video game. Because they don't have to, a video game's in that time, a very niche thing that they wouldn't have to blow open the whole characters. Of course, it was successful enough to lead to these new Mickey Mouse and Friends cartoons that you see now, where he even has his older design. Anyway, the game. Oswald is tricked by a sorcerer. And basically the whole world loses all of its color, and Mickey has to make the world right again, and it's all Oswald's working against him because Oswald's jealous that Mickey took the fame Oswald feels he deserves. And this game is just incredibly imaginative. The level design is amazing, and the gameplay is just ridiculous, and boss battles are just so original and inventive and fun. And I remember my mother-in-law and my father-in-law still buy people Christmas presents no matter how old you are. You're getting a present. And they always ask me what I want, and it's a very awkward thing for a man, a grown man to say, oh, I want this for Christmas, but they're very insistent. And one year, I was like, you know what? Screw it. I want Epic Mickey. I want a Mickey Mouse video game. And I got it. And the looks on everyone's faces is that I was 23, 24 at the time I had a child, how excited I was to get this Mickey Mouse game and it wasn't just because I'm a Disney nerd. I get it. It's weird for grown men to like Disney a lot. I get that, but I do. But it wasn't just that. It's that this was such an incredibly reviewed video game. I couldn't wait to play it, and I played it for hours and hours. And just there's platforming, there's action RPG elements, not really RPG elements, I don't want to say that, but there's exploration, there's everything I love in a video game, and an engaging story with twists and turns. I loved it. And one element in this game that I think is really cool, that really stands out to me, is there's a level, an area called Mickey Junk Mountain, and it's literally just all the advertising, product placement stuff that's had Mickey's face on it collected into a garbage heap, and Oswald sort of sees it as sort of this monument to the ethos of Mickey. Like, look at all this garbage you created because people just can't get enough of you. And really interesting storytelling on Disney's part. Really cool. Strongly suggest you check it out. And I'm going to end on a game that's just really. I didn't mention it earlier. It came out on the Sega Genesis. It was produced by Sega. It's a Sega game with Mickey in it. It's Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse. I'm going to talk about the remake that they made just a few years ago. It was for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3. And you could buy it with backwards compatibility on Xbox One, which I did just the other night, which made me want to do this one. Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse is a good old-fashioned 16-bit platformer. The remake is awesome because it's a 2.5 platformer, 2.5D. And it is just everything you want in a platformer. It's everything you want in a Mario game, everything you want in just all those, like, we had the Bubsies, and so we had all these failed ones that tried to capture the popularity of Mario and Sonic. But Castle of Illusion starring Mickey, you explore a castle, you go to different places that will take you to different stages, and it's just a delight to play. The story isn't all that... it's certainly not as interesting as Epic Mickey, but Minnie, I think, is tending a garden or something, and a sorceress named Mizrabel kidnaps her. And Mickey goes to save the princess. So it's a very traditional platformer. Girl's captured, boy goes to save him, and it just happens to be one of the most famous, fictitious, anthropomorphic animal couples ever, Mickey and Minnie Mouse. And so you go through this castle, and the level design is just exquisite. You will always be having fun. Bosses are imaginative. They're fun. It's not super difficult, so if you have young children that are really into Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse, they'll enjoy it too. But any of these games, they're available on current platforms. Please go try them out because, again, the first metric that we measure a game by is whether or not it's fun. So, and if you can't, if you don't have access to a Wii to play, or a Wii U to play Epic Mickey, I strongly suggest YouTubing a Let's Play of it because it does have a very fascinating story. It's the second best Disney video game story of all time, of course, following the Kingdom Hearts series as a whole. But I strongly suggest you check these games out. Any one of them is a great way to spend a weekend. I highly doubt any of them, except maybe Epic Mickey, will take you longer than a weekend. And I just... the super fun games, they remind me of being a kid. Because, again, when we were kids, we just had Disney stuff thrown at us because our parents were like, well, this is obviously safe, good, and wholesome. So take that. Because they're certainly not going to watch it. I think we're the first generation of parents that actually enjoy things that our kids are doing. Because, of course, our parents didn't enjoy sports. They enjoyed screaming at us about sports. Guys, like, share, and subscribe. Do us a favor. Do yourself a favor, because if you subscribe, you could click the bell, and we will holler at you when we got a video up. And guys, again, I just want to mention again, we've grown exponentially in the past year. It's been incredible. And one of the coolest ways we've grown is that we're a part of a podcasting network. No, I'm sorry, we're part of a podcasting family. The Rally, and I am not being facetious. Honestly, I appreciate that we're a part of this. It's really cool. The Rally Networks. You'll find links to the rest of our brothers' work on any of our websites, any of our video descriptions, stuff of that nature. Please check these other guys out. Not all of these guys are doing video games. Some of them are doing really cool conceptual podcasts. That is not to suggest that the guys that are doing video games aren't, because, of course, video games are the highest form of human achievement. But anyway, our pal Keegan runs a show called The Framework of Tomorrow. Really cool show. If you're a history buff or even a futurist, it applies to you. I'm a huge history buff. I love reading about history. And basically, it takes the past and sees how, like paving a road, that may be leading to something in the future. And Keegan theorizes and examines where that future is based on the past. Really, really cool stuff, guys. So if you're wanting something actual academic after listening to me and Don talk about how Cray has tried to stop the Hegelian dialectical in KOTOR 2, if you're looking for something that maybe has a little bit more meat in it, please check Keegan out. But, of course, don't get hooked on the meat. Come back to Don Aram as well. And so, yeah, guys, show some love to the rest of the Rally Network. Great group of guys. Love working with them. And as always... we look forward to seeing you. Don't be a stranger, y'all.